You're tuning in to Radio Moobies, a special event podcast in collaboration between the Explosion Network, the Pop Culturist, and DashGamer.com. Each week we'll be discussing the films, or we was, from the Kevin Smith View Askewniverse, our memories with them, why we love them, and we're preparing ourselves for Jane Silent Bob Reboot, which we're hoping will magically release before next week's episode. My name's Dylan Blight, and joining me from the Pop Culturist is Brian Betson.
Hey.
And from DashGamer.com, I'm just like, what do you say this week? Buddy Watson.
You fucking think just because a guy reads comics can't start some shit?
Okay, so on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about our favorite Kevin Smith movie because we're going to be officially ranking them. So I think you can kind of guess buddies, I guess, if you link the quote introduction and go work out how that works from there. This will serve as a sort of wrap-up-ish episode, even though, of course, we have the ultimate goal of this podcast is to talk about Jane Silent Bob Reboot. Hopefully that is going to come out soon. Hopefully we'll be able to get our hands on it soon, and hopefully we'll be back to discuss it. Be that tomorrow, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now. I don't really know. But this episode will serve as the finish until that happens. And what we're going to do is give you our list, our ordering, our leaderboard, whatever you want to call it, for our Kevin Smith View Askewniverse films, not Kevin Smith entirely, the View Askewniverse films. And then I'll talk about ultimately what do we each feel these 6 movies, soon to be 7 movies, mean to us? Do you think they have a special place to you? Do you hold them dearly? And then I want to go over Kevin Smith himself. What part do you think Kevin Smith has had in shaping your life? We've touched on a lot of things, surely. Like, of course, we know Ryan. Kevin Smith has molded Ryan's life.
No, I was waiting for you to be like, look, we'll talk about how he's molded Ryan.
Yeah, we'll talk about how he's molded Ryan.
I'm surprised your son's not named Kevin.
Yeah.
That's if it wasn't one of the most bogan names, I probably would have thought of it.
Hey, Kevin.
Dante rattled around for a little while.
Got a doughy over there, Kevin. Pass the fuck. That's
Got a dart.
Got a dart.
I did also think Jason Robert too at one point. You get J Bob. There you go.
Hey Jayso, mate. Jayso, mate, you back for Hawthorn? Yeah, you do. Look at me making a sports joke.
Even you showed some growth in this 6 episode.
We'll kind of just wrap up with our feelings on Kevin Smith and stuff like that. So let us start, though, with our lists. So since Buddy dropped the quote, let's start with you. Go from bottom to top is what we'll do. How you rank the movies and explain why you rank them the way you do and where everything is, why it's there.
Bottom to top. So at number 6, I have Dogma. It's my least favorite Kevin Smith View Askewniverse movie. Like on the episode, I said I'm not really into all the religious stuff in it. I feel like the humor in it was really lowbrow, and I generally just don't dig the movie. I only really rewatched it because we watched it. We're doing this podcast. I would not watch it on my own volition again, really. So, yeah, not a big fan. Am I going from 6 to 1, or are we rotating around?
No, we'll go. We'll just do your list, because then you can explain where everything is and ultimately why it places where it is.
Number 5, I've got Clerks 2. Once again, if you listened to last week's show, you know that I wasn't a big fan of the donkey scene in it. I felt it like it came in a real pivotal time in the movie when we find out that, oh my God, freaking he's, I've gone totally blank right now.
Because you're thinking about donkeys and you're like,
that's
oh
right,
no, it's showing in your face. You're like, oh, I can't speak.
It's the interspecies erotica.
Yeah, and all the other stuff that I didn't really like in it, the vomit scene, and I don't feel like it was as relatable as the other movies that I really enjoy. Number 4, I've got Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. Once again, it's like a greatest hits movie, and it's the greatest hits of the next kind of 3 movies that are my top 3. So without further ado, number 3 is Clerks. I love Clerks, especially being a retailer worker. It is really relatable and resonates quite a lot, especially within the workplace that I work with, and how we have all these stupid conversations about movies and music and little pop culture stuff, and just some of the batshit things you would never really think of unless you lived or work in such kind of boring ass job sometimes that really has no significance whatsoever.
Yeah.
So yeah, love Clerks 1. And number 1 and 2, I feel like it's a tie. I said this on these episodes, but really depending on your mood, or my mood, because it's my list.
My mood
Comes down to Chasing Amy and Mallrats. I think Mallrats is number 1 just because of the quotable nature of it, and it's almost like watching a read along when you can watch it, and just the first really experience of having other pop culture references pop up in a movie and be this kind of, I don't know if I'd say fourth wall breaking, but it's a movie that took place in the real world, speaking about Spider-Man and comics and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, very relatable. And I love Jason in this, so he's so good. And yeah, Chasing Amy has a lot of heart, and is, out of all the Kevin Smith movies, I feel like this is one that really can stand on its own 2 feet without being pigeonholed into the View Askewniverse. I think we said that before in the Chasing Amy episode. So it's a tough one. I love Chasing Amy for different reasons for what I do with Mallrats, and it's really a flip of the coin with which one could be my favorite on the day.
Yep, I think I'll let it know now that I haven't heard anyone's list. I'm writing down everyone's list as we go, and then I will be able to give an overall ranking by signing numbers.
Very cool.
Here. So we'll have an official winner by the end of this. I'll let you all know. Ryan, what is your list from bottom to top?
Now, the order of obviously the order is important, but it's the situation of I like all of my children. For number 6 for me, it's Dogma. But also at 5 is Clerks, and I feel these are interchangeable. For Dogma, it's because of the density of the film in terms of the subject matter. It does make it difficult to casually rewatch, even though it is still very, very good. It's just you've got to be ready to watch it. It's not just something you can just put on for a laugh. Like, hey, you know what? We should watch Dogma. Clerks is fantastic, but it certainly feels its age in some ways, and it is a stepping stone to everything else that has come afterwards, so you can't really diss it in that sense. But I do find it, I don't know, I guess there's other things there's things about the other ones that I like more because, as we've mentioned many times now, the growth of Kevin. Next up is Mallrats. Absolutely love it. Still fantastic, but it's not just quite not as good as the other options. Chasing Amy is brilliant. Hits me on emotional levels. It's just one of the most poignant of his films. It delivers such a different side to Kevin, while also still balancing that over the top inappropriate humor that we've seen before. Jay and Silent Bob is number 2. A lot of this is nostalgia, but it's bright, it's colorful, it's fun, it's stupid. I have too many good memories with this movie for it to be anywhere else. And number 1, for the reasons that I talked about last week, it's Clerks 2.
Quick rejig.
Quick recap, Clerks 2 came at a very point in time in my life, one of the most important moments of my life in terms of a transition window, and the movie itself being about the transition away from your dearest friend and the changes that life can take you, and hit me right as I was leaving high school and about ready to move to Melbourne to study, where my best friend to this day, is still back home. And it was just this, it spoke to me when I needed it the most, and for that, it'll always have a place in my heart. And on top of that, it gave me my wedding song, and it gave me, it's the connection with some other friends that even though we don't catch up anymore, it's a good connector for me.
All right, my list, and I think Yeah, I think this is the only one we all connected on. I too at number 6 have Dogma, and I also, like Ryan, would like to say that it's not like I don't actually dislike any of these movies. Whereas Buddy's like, fuck Dogma 2 and its donkey's erotica scene. Fuck that scene up the ass. No pun intended. Or pun intended, whichever way you want to take it. Yeah, I do like all the movies, and I've watched them all several times over. So this ranking is just comparing. It's like ranking Tarantino movies to me, honestly. Although I don't feel as deep a connection to Tarantino movies because I feel that's why I want to talk about Kevin Smith after this, because I do think obviously Kevin Smith is an important part for all these movies, because every episode we don't just talk about the movies, we also always end up talking about Kevin Smith as a person, which I think is important for how we talk about these movies. So Dogma, it's fine. I don't think it particularly is nothing. As Ryan said, no one's ever going to be like, hey, Saturday afternoon, you want to watch Dogma? Like, it's been a while. Of all the things you could watch, yeah. It's also not a movie I'd ever like kind of randomly suggest to anyone. It just feels into such a random thing. It's like the only time you're ever going to watch it is if you're ever doing something like this. You're watching all of the View Askewniverse movies. Like, you'd never just randomly put it on. Then at number 5, I actually have Chasing Amy. I do think, like, as much as I kind of can appreciate that movie more now, as I said in an episode when we discussed it, I think like it kind of just falls into this place for me simply because the first time I ever watched it, I just didn't get it. And it was, out of all these movies, the most serious. And I was like, I don't know, like not a lot of this humor was hitting for me and whatever else. And even though I can watch it now and appreciate it more, kind of just falls into this place because of how I felt when I watched it, I guess. And a lot of the other ones up here, I have more attachment from the first viewings I had of them. At number 4, I've got Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. It's a fun movie. I enjoy it quite a lot. Makes me laugh still, but ultimately it is just it's just a fun movie. It's not anything grand. Number 3, I have Clerks, the original Clerks, because I can actually just watch that one straight up and laugh at the jokes, because I think a lot of the jokes are still quite funny, as we talked about on the first episode of this podcast. But I also think just it's like out of all these movies, it's the one with the most cinema history. You can watch that one and kind of appreciate it for what it was at the time and like the start of this career and all the tricks of the trade that kind of Kevin did to make that movie happen and stuff. At number 2, as much as Buddy hates me, I've got Clerks 2. I do find that movie, as we talked about on last week's episode, a lot of stuff, the friendship stuff and whatever else, relatable and stuff, and the story about growing up and all this sort of stuff. And I still find a lot of it quite funny. It's got really great stuff. As we said, the donkey thing it's a thing that happens, but it's ultimately, to me, it's a small part of the movie. I know it happens in such a big final part, but like I can look past it. I take it or leave it. It doesn't affect my feelings on the movie in whole. And then at number 1, Mallrats. I consider Mallrats one of my favorite movies of all time. So I don't know where it would fall in my top 10 of all time. I've never actually done that list. It's scary to think about, but it would definitely be in there for sure. This is one of these movies I've watched the most. It's there with Shaun of the Dead. I often, whenever I had sick days where you're just like, I'm dying, like my body sucks and I'm fucking like sneezing everywhere, like I can't do anything. And where you just want to watch something that's comfort food viewing. My 2 highest viewed comfort views are Mallrats and Shaun of the Dead. Both of those movies I watch so much, and I just find them so funny every single time I watch them. So that's why both of those movies would actually be in my top 10, but that's why Mallrats falls at the top of this list, because I watched it so much. It makes me laugh every single time. It just makes me happy and I enjoy it. And I could, as I said, when we discussed it on the second episode of this show, I literally basically watched it 1.5 times when it was on, because it just like auto started playing again. I was like, I can watch the movie again. Sure, why not? It's still funny. Like, let's go. Let's do it, Mallrats. So, official ranking, looking at the scores here, we have, unsurprisingly, Dogma at the very bottom, because we all gave it the bottom vote.
And a lonely 3 points.
Yeah, it really did not do quite well at all there. Then we have Clerks in at number 5. That one got a variation of points, but fell in there. And then we have a tie. So I don't want order. We'll just say these are 3, 4, and whatever order you decide. But Jane Silent Bob Strike Back and Chasing Amy both got tied points. And then second is Clerks 2, and number 1 is Mallrats. Because
I'm glad I could swing Clerks 2 up there. I feel that my 6 points really caused that.
Yeah, well, it's like me and Buddy give such high points to Mallrats, and then you're like at 4, and it's like, can't drag it down, get out of here. And then it's kind of like you put Clerks 2 as 1, I put it as 2, and then Buddy's down here like trying to drag it down, but it still doesn't work out, so it doesn't work out.
Fuck the Metacritic.
Yeah. So that's the official Metacritic for our things. So ultimately, now that we're done looking over these 6 movies, Buddy, how do you feel about these 6 films, the View Askewniverse as a whole? And would you consider that some of, or definitely not all of, but some of these movies have shaped your movie viewing experience, or however you want to word that kind of question? Like, do you think they play an important part on cinema for you, important part in your life, or are they just they're just movies?
I think that's as much as Ryan's not going to like this answer. Not a lot, I don't think. Mallrats maybe, with how much I love it, but I just don't know if my love for it and why I love it is impacting any other of my movie choices, if that makes sense. As much as I love Mallrats and Chasing Amy, I don't feel like they've made me gravitate towards a specific genre of movie or seek out movies that are of similar themes or anything like that. Mallrats, maybe, in the sense that it's a movie that is very quotable. I feel like it holds up as a comedy over all these years, and maybe some of the other comedies that I enjoy or some of the other humor I find in movies is quite similar. So Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is in my top 5 movies of all time, and that's got a lot of video game references and a lot of, I guess, pop culture touch points in it, similar to what Mallrats is. But did Mallrats make me seek that out, or is that just something that I enjoy in movies? I don't know. So
now, you watched that because everyone watched that movie when it came out.
That got pulled from my cinema within a week, and it had 10:30 sessions after its debut couple of days. So it got axed big time.
That's weird. I was like, well, my cinema showed it for months, I think. Like, that's how well it was doing.
Yeah, but in Tasmania, they'd show shit movies for months. Hasn't Yesterday been showing for like 20 weeks?
Well, it takes a long while to get things there by boat. So.
Yeah. Well, once you put them here, you might as well keep them going. Ryan, how do you feel then? The View Askewniverse movies, they super important to you. How do you place them in your cinema viewing world?
Yeah, they're incredibly important to me.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought? I know, right? What fucking weird.
You could have swerved us all.
I have the posters, I have all the wedding vows and everything, but fuck these movies, guys. They're not really that important.
Yeah, these movies encapsulate such a very particular window of time in my life. A lot of them have sort of been that situation of being there when I needed them, sort of thing. And it's tough to articulate how powerful and important these movies as well. And we'll get to Kevin Smith in a little while as well. But yeah, they have and when you look, when I'm on my deathbed and I look back at the things that helped shape the person that I had become by that day, these films were part of that. In my teens, in my early 20s, they are so involved with who I am and who I become or who I will become. I couldn't have them. I couldn't imagine my life without them. Even though I don't watch them as regularly or anything like I used to, they were so important. They are ingrained in me. They are part of me.
I feel like I have a similar answer, even though I don't have the credence that you do to back up.
Where's the evidence?
Yeah, where's the evidence? Yeah, but it's kind of weird because although I can't look at these movies and be like, well, this movie or this thing like helped shape me into like being a better person or something drastic like that. But it's hard for me to not look at these movies, how much I watched them growing up once I found them. And it was like finding it was like finding someone you should have been friends with your whole life or something like that when you're, like, oh, these people, why haven't I known about this why didn't I meet you 10 years ago or something like that, and ever since I have discovered them, it's like, and I do think the Kevin Smith thing is super important because, like, maybe if Kevin Smith wasn't his own, like, persona and, like, person, maybe these movies wouldn't be as important to me. Maybe, like, they're kind of semi-connected, like, because although I don't watch these movies every single year, I do listen to Kevin Smith every single year, and these are always going to come back to it. So I think they're somewhat interconnected, but I definitely feel like these are some of the movies I watched the most growing up. So I don't feel like they shaped me to be a better person, but I definitely feel like they are key, important players into the sort of comedy I was into back then, even if a lot of that was naughty, bad jokes or whatever, that it was making me laugh. So that somewhat would have shaped my comedy, like what I found funny as a teenager and stuff. But it also, all these movies shaped me wanting to, at a period, I think I talked about this somewhat on the Clerks one or something, but somewhat for a period, these movies where I wanted to be a filmmaker myself, these movies were like kind of the pinnacle, like I would put these on a pedestal of like why I felt like I too could become a director one day, It's always funny because then Kevin Smith talks about how he watched Slackers, and that was like, he watched Slackers and he's like, well, I can be a filmer. If this counts, then this counts. Where I was kind of doing a similar thing where I found these movies and was always like, this shit counts as movies, like, like these seem very attainable to me. I can write fucking scripts and I can get my friends to do half-assed acting. Like I can do that. So like for a long period of time, I put these on a pinnacle of when I was in high school of like obtainability of wanting to be a filmmaker. Like I can go from Clerks to the higher budget $1 million films, like sure I can do that. This is a very achievable goal. So
like you said, the comfort food as well. It's like it's like the filmmaker gets you, like Kevin Smith gets you because he's one of us. You know what I mean? It's identifiable. It's relatable. It all resonates. Like he feels like he knows you and you know him.
Yeah. And I definitely feel like, because a lot of this podcast, every single episode, we always end up talking about Kevin Smith. And I've kind of always put that in as some of the topics at first, not on purpose, but then after the first couple of episodes where I'm like, I was always bringing up Kevin Smith and like him at the time and his history and like, how do we think you've grown, blah, 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 blah. And once after the first couple of show notes, I noticed I was doing that. I was like, it's so funny how I view these movies, but I always view them so I can't even say the word, super linked to Kevin Smith, like as a filmmaker. And there's not many other movies where I feel like the filmmaker and their history and their age and their time and where they were at the period is so connected to their actual work. Like I don't think there's anything else I can watch that has such a super connection to the actual filmmaker to me. Like as much as I can look at Reservoir Dogs, and that was another movie at the time where I was like, super obtainable. I could write Reservoir Dogs. I could make Reservoir Dogs. Like it's basically set in a fucking warehouse for 90%. I kind of put that on a pedestal too of like, I want to be a filmmaker. This works. I'd never watch a Tarantino movie. And I'm like, well, yeah, because at this age he was probably going for this. And like, I don't know his life like I know Kevin Smith's life. And that means I don't have the relatability to watch these movies with the same thing that we've been talking about with Kevin Smith. So yeah, talking about Kevin Smith, big part of this podcast, of course. Throw it back to you, Ryan, first. Kevin Smith, we're introduced to him through these movies, of course. But I feel like for a lot of people, it's easy to say he's more than just these movies. And, and I don't mean like he's directing Supergirl and shit. I mean, a lot of people, of course, have come to know and mostly know Kevin Smith now through his podcasting work and stuff like that. So, and that's like, he does so much more than many people, to the point that I feel like if you listen to so much of it, it's hard not to like get that feeling of like, I know this person and this person's like my friend, even though we don't know each other, but blah, 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 because you get that feeling. How do you feel about Kevin Smith in your life? Like if these films have played an important part somewhat, how would you say Kevin Smith as a person has played in his life, even outside of the films?
Well, once again, it's the same thing. Like when I look back at the people that have genuinely inspired me to do the things that I do or be the person that I am, Kevin Smith is on that list. Just in terms of his view on the world mirrors mine. Our sense of humor align, and his sense of humor probably more than likely shaped mine. He's like, it's in the situation of he has said some things that I wish I could have said. It's the situation of like, because of Kevin Smith, I got into podcasting fucking 8 years ago. You know what I mean? It was that decision of just being like, well, that inspiration of him being like, why not? Give it a whirl. He didn't say that because that's a very strange saying, but yeah, because his whole idea of, the two kinds of people in your life, the people that say why, people that say why not. Like, it's not this profound bit of information. It's, it's quite a simple analysis, but it really helped me change my perspective in a lot of ways. And especially like with the job I have now as an example. My job now is very much focused around being that why not person. My entire role is to help people, understand their potential when they don't see it, and put opportunities in place that allow them to grow. And a lot of that comes from asking why not. And that why not is what got me starting in radio. It's what got me to have moments of trying to express myself in a creative fashion. It's it's tough to not repeat myself, or I'm also finding it very difficult to articulate the intense probably the wrong word, but the immense inspiration that Kevin Smith has given to me for the last X amount of years. I can't understand. Like I said, right now, I don't listen to much Kevin Smith podcasts. I certainly don't think that I have passed him in terms of he's an influence on the past. I've moved into somewhere else. I just don't have a lot of time in my day to listen to 1,000 podcasts like I used to.
Yeah, but I don't think that matters, because it's like there's a period of your life where you listen to a bunch of stuff. And I feel like if someone inspires you to then go out and do something like podcasting or whatever else, and if you then overlap and become like, I'm too busy doing the thing, be that with your job, because could you say for sure, do you reckon if you didn't start podcasting all those years ago, you would have actually ever got to where your job is now?
No. Podcasting and content creation is literally what got me my job that I have now. Like I said, I've always, growing up, I was very shy. Even in my university years, I was very shy. Podcasting and that influence of sort of putting yourself out there has got me to go past that. And I doubt, if anyone was to ever meet me now, you certainly wouldn't think I was shy or sort of reserved in any way. And that growth has come from the assistance of that and that world. And without articulating it well, like when Kev came to Australia, like I saw him in multiple cities. I've seen him in Sydney. I've seen him in Melbourne within the same week. I saw him in Sydney. I saw him in Melbourne. I saw him in Adelaide within the same week for different shows. I got to one of the Q&As. I actually got to ask him a question. I can't remember what it was, but I got to speak to him for a moment. And
what's with the donkey scene?
Yeah.
So the donkey come?
But yeah, no, it is one of those things where it's like, when I look back and I look at the people that have influenced me and affected me and helped me grow, that list is, for a window of time was kind of funny. For a window of time, it was embarrassingly the Jackass guys, because that's what I needed when I was that age. I needed that confidence that they had. And then for a good hunk of that time, it's Kevin Smith.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's like knowing Kevin, like just from listening to stuff and whatever else, and kind of having this idea, like I'd say that we both have an idea of who Kevin Smith is, right? And I feel like if he was to ever be like, I don't have time to listen to much of your stuff anymore because I started podcasting and then I did it for so many years and then I got this fantastic job that I'm now super happy in because of all this, he wouldn't turn around and be like, well, fuck, dude, like find some time to listen to my stuff. He'd be like, don't listen to anything. Don't even watch my movies. Like, he's the kind of dude who would be like, I feel like if you told him that, he would just be happy with that. You know what I mean?
It's like his job's done.
Yeah, it's like I feel like he would be so happy, and I feel like that's like the ultimate form of inspiration too, where it's like you kind of surpass, like you get inspired by someone. Even like say you want to be in a band or something, and all you do is like listen to someone's music constantly or something like that, and then one day you're like you don't listen to their stuff anymore because you're so busy with your own stuff. That's like kind of the goal. I feel somewhat. It's not to keep up with the amount of content you're intaking from someone who inspires you. It's literally to overtake that to a point. Yeah, I feel. Buddy. Kevin,
my answer's going to suck compared to that. How the fuck
follow,
do I follow up after Ryan?
That, motherfucker.
Yeah, fuck. How do I follow that? The thing I always take away from Kevin Smith, I think you've alluded to it already, is his you can do it attitude. And listening to, I think the only real Kevin Smith podcast I used to listen to was Jay and Silent Bob Get Old.
Yeah.
And that was probably the one I listened to the most out of any of his stuff. And every now and then when he was on some guest spots for other podcasts that would pop up on. But the one thing that always like stuck out to me was he's like, yeah, fuck it. You want to do this? Go do it. Like this kind of, why are you waiting on your dreams or your goals? Like you want to do it, just go do it. And who cares if it's shit? Because the first time you do it, at least you're making it happen. And, you know, the second time you do it, it won't be as bad. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're doing the thing that you love or doing this thing that you never thought was possible. So that's the one thing that, like, anytime anyone says, you know, is Kevin Smith important to you, or what do you think about Kevin Smith? That's the one thing that always pops up into my mind. And, you know, I wanted to make a podcast for a good 2 or 3 years in a row, and my New Year's resolution was, this is the year I'm going to make a podcast. Fucking obviously didn't commit to it, didn't do it. Next year, I'm going to make a podcast. Didn't do it. And then 1 year I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do that as my New Year's resolution. And for some reason, in the first week of January, I'm like, if it happens, it happens. I'll just like, fuck it, I'm buying the equipment. I did this, I brought that, and all of a sudden I've got a podcast running out of my house the first week into a year where I didn't even make it my resolution. And once again, a lot of that, I can't say that it's Kevin Smith, but it's, you know, that's that attitude of just fucking do it. And yeah, 1 week in to that year, I was just like, fuck it, I'm doing it. And I did it. And that's the one thing I always take away from the kind of the message that he gives. So,
yeah, I feel like the thing with Kevin Smith and the way I feel about him is that there's no fashion I think he's Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's a martyr or something like that. He's simply the person who a lot of us in a certain age group or like into geek nerdy stuff or whatever, like Kevin Smith says a lot of stuff that we want to hear. He's simply the person saying it, and he's sounding confident. And because you respect him enough, when he says certain things, you grab onto him, especially if you're younger, like 18, 20 or whatever, that sort of age. You got a dude saying, just do your dream. It doesn't matter who that person is, as long as you respect them enough. I feel like you kind of going to be like, oh, that's nice to hear. I kind of like that. But yeah, so I used to listen to, I love all these films, obviously, and that was my introduction to Kevin Smith. But I remember when he announced he was like launching Smodcast Radio.
Did you stay up to like 3 a.m. when it went live too?
I stayed up the first night it was ever going live, and I was laying on my bed with my laptop open, piece of shit laptop, and constantly refreshing, waiting for that thing to go live. And it was like a moment I kind of will not forget, because it was blowing my mind away that you could do radio through the internet like that, because I'd never actually considered that an option and whatever else. But yeah, I always remember that moment. And on and off throughout the years, I've always been on and off different Kevin Smith podcasts, from the lows I'm in now, where, much like Ryan's saying, I'm just too busy. Like, I don't have the time to listen to as much podcasts as I would like to. And honestly, when I do, most of the podcasts I do listen to these days, I choose to actually listen to friend stuff or like people in our own circles, because I would actually just rather listen to and support other people's stuff than listen to, as you said, Kind of Funny or Kevin Smith stuff or whatever else. Like, you know, that's kind of way I view it. So it's like I could not listen to fucking House Mario, pop culture, stash culture, whatever, and listen to Kevin Smith all the time. But that's just my choice. But when I was at my high, I was listening to Smodcast, Hollywood Babylon, some Movie Makers when he did that run, Fat Man on Batman, of course, when that started up. The interview one he did for a short period of time. There was even that fucking science one he did for a short period of time, whatever that was called.
Edumacation was still brilliant. Yeah.
Edumacation, which was like a couple of episodes. Like I would ingest fucking all of it. And it is those key moments that stand out that kind of, I would definitely say if people like, if I get super famous tomorrow and someone's going to interview me and be like, who would you view as your inspirations in life? I would 100% put Kevin Smith as like a top of that, because he was that person who, even to this day, even if I still don't listen to him a lot, like that whole mantra of, I remember him answering like someone in the audience, the first time I ever heard him say like that whole just do it attitude. Like someone was asking like, how do I start a podcast? Like, how do I go about do it? Blah, 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 blah. And his answer was like, well, you've got a phone. Like, do you got friends? You got a coffee table? Put the phone in the middle of the table, press record, just fucking do it. And him just being like, it doesn't matter if no one listens to it. He's like, at worst, you and a bunch of friends have a great time and you have something to listen to back 50 years from now and laugh about or something like that, you know? At worst, if no one listens to it, it's just memories. So, and I always kind of come back to that often, because as much as I want the Explosion Network to be successful, because I would love to do this for my actual full-time job, of course, I'm not fucking, why would I never say that that's not what I want? Yes, 100%. And there are times I get serious, and I feel like there are times I need to be serious, and I need to be like, I want the Explosion Network to be successful, and I have to put my serious face on and do whatever else then. But then there are other times where I fall back onto remembering Kevin Smith saying these sorts of things and just being like, I don't care who listens, you know? Like we start up this podcast for this. I don't give a shit if anyone listens to this, honestly. I've had a great time doing this podcast, and I couldn't give two shits if anyone listens to it. If people listen to it and have fun, great, that's cool to me. But ultimately, I've had fun watching these movies and just talking about the movies on a weekly basis. And I think that's like one thing I've always garnered from Kevin Smith when it comes to podcasting is it's just like, you can just do it and be like, if one person listens, cool. Like there's one person. That's more than zero. That's a success, you know? Like you don't need 100. I've always kind of garnered that from him. And the just do it attitude, you know? Like people ask him like, how should I start a movie these days? He's like, you got a fucking iPhone 6, dude. Like that thing's a better camera than I had when I made Clerks. Go make your fucking movie. Like
look at Steven Soderbergh over here fucking filming things on fucking iPhone 7.
Yeah, exactly. Like his whole attitude to be like, just fucking film it, put it on YouTube, just do it. Like stop getting so focused on how do I make the movie? And people are asking these questions always been like, how do I make the movie and be popular? But it's not like start at basics. Like how do you make it? Just film it. How do you do a podcast? Just fucking record it. Like stop worrying about things. Just have great times. He always talks about things being experiences. But I often think like the Kevin Smith that I kind of love and adore is not the Kevin Smith that was making these movies that we've been talking about, which I find interesting. Like the Kevin Smith that we have now is a very like embraceful kind of happy dude who just wants positive stuff all the time. And I constantly see people online giving him shit for it. Like, cause for whatever reason, all these comic book sites always write articles like Kevin Smith's thoughts on Spider-Man, Kevin Smith's thoughts on this. And people in the comments are like, I don't give two shits about his thoughts because he's always super happy and he never like negative at it, like never has a negative thought about any movies and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's kind of just the dude he is these days. And I kind of like it because he has such a just do it attitude, and you can see that for all the non-View Askewniverse movies, obviously. Like he made fucking yoga hoses. He makes fucking Tusk. He's just like, I'm just doing shit that makes me happy, you know? But he's like reaching that fine line where he's doing his job. Like he's making movies, and of course he wants to make money on them, you know? Of course, he wants to make some level of money off them. That would be nice. But at the same time, he's just being like, ultimately, the goal with these movies is to make me happy. And that's what he does. I don't think that's what his goal was with the View Askewniverse movies. Post Clerks. Clerks was just, I'll have a go. And that's amazing. And that's such like an example of his sort of go-get-em attitude. Post that, it's like a period of Kevin Smith. He's trying to make it, like trying to be a proper director or something like that. So it's like, the Kevin Smith I love and adore these days is like post 2005 Kevin Smith, I'd like to think, you know? It's post.
Well, because if you go back and watch the Evening Withs and you watch him now, watch any of his newer Q&As, his entire stance, his body language is completely different.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're spot on.
Yes.
There was a transitional point at some moment in time where he became the hockey jersey, big smiley Kev,
Yes.
and his whole outlook changed.
Yeah. And I love it. I don't like people hate on it.
I agree. I think it's perfect.
As funny as it is, like we was talking about last week, how in an evening with two, he does the whole like Lord of the Rings, like shitting on the Lord of the Rings speech thing, which they then put in Clerks 2. He wouldn't do that these days. Well, maybe he would, but he'd be more jokingly about it. I honestly feel like he's just kind of reached that stage where he'd rather just talk positively about things and put positive energy out there rather than spend a lot of time on negative stuff. Although I definitely feel like that persona of like geek dude, like that was the thing. Like you had to kind of be curmudgeon-y. It was always like, comic book guy from fucking Simpsons and shit like that, But then the other thing that I always have, I think you were kind of talking about it before, Ryan, is like the other big quote thing that he's always said is surround yourself by the yes men, not the no men, or the why, the
why and the
why nots, not the whys and stuff like that. So, and that's often something that, comes up in life, honestly, all the time, nearly, like throughout the years, there's people, and in my life, they've come and gone, and I would say they're why people, and I always fall back onto him because I would rather have a small friendship group, that supports me, creatively and in life and stuff, rather than a big friendship group that has a bunch of people that are like, but why? Why would you do that? Like, why did you try to do that? Like, even back when I was back in late high school when I started making my YouTube videos and stuff, I had friends then at the time where like, this is a waste of time. That's silly. Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
This is never going to go anywhere. YouTube is nothing.
Exactly. All that sort of stuff. So,
to add to that, like I discovered, my parents are that. My mum was why the fuck you do that? Why would you want to do that? Blah, blah, blah. Right? And then my dad has never been that why not person. He's the one that helped me line up all these things to do what I wanted to do. And so it's very jarring when you do kind of focus that within your like friends group and then also within your family.
Yeah. Well, it's like when my parents found out, it's such a funny story every time I talk about it. When my parents found out I was making YouTube videos when I was in grade 7, so when I was like 12 or whatever the fuck it is, when they eventually found out, they hid the camera because it was my dad's camera that I was recording these videos on. They hid it behind locked door. So I had to like save up my pocket money by not using it to buy food at school. So my mum was giving me lunch money, and I was not buying food with it. So I was starving myself at school basically to save the money so I could buy a camera so I could continue making videos and stuff. But I don't like super hold it against my parents. I've brought it up several times on podcasts and stuff. It's not like I super hold it against them, but at the same time, I can't help but think that they didn't help hone obviously something that I was getting into and was super interested in stuff.
It's hard because how are you supposed to know how important YouTube is at that time or anything like that? What were you doing to film? Like when were you filming?
All hours. I don't know. Sometimes after school, sometimes before school. Sometimes I wouldn't come home until 6 o'clock because I'd go film shit at different places and whatever else.
Yeah.
But like I know in the same, because I've had similar discussions with my mother as well. Because for she was pushing me to go to university and do that sort of stuff, and I did that. I got my 5 years of study, and then years later, now that I've done all this, she's like, no, this is what you're meant to do.
Well, is that because when I was getting, it's like, oh yeah, you go to university to study that, Dylan. You don't just run around trying to make short films by yourself on a camera and upload them to YouTube. You go to university to do that. You do well in school, So I get, it was just like it's an attitude of an era.
Yeah.
I feel.
So you work within your means. You stay within your means, and you do this.
Yeah, like I'd like to think that if I'm ever a father, I would be. I would like to think I would be more open to, and I don't mean like YouTube specifically, but it's like, oh, you're writing all the time, eh? Like
creative endeavors.
Yeah, I feel like just
not
because
the status quo.
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever you're happy with, I want to hone whatever it is into your life because
you're Randall in Clerks too.
Yeah. I don't know. Like one of my views in life is like, it's like super naive and silly every time, but like I'm honestly a lot of times just like, why can't people just do what they want to do? Because people always make this thing. They're like, well, if everyone could do it, everyone would be a super duper actor and make all the money. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't think actors should actually get paid as much as they do. So in like an ideal world, bring that down a little bit. And I'll just like an ideal world where it's like so many people want to do things, but not everyone actually wants to be an actor. That's why going back to like last week of Clerks 2, where Randall's just like, I'm happy doing this. Like I'm this is what makes me happy. I'm like, if that's what makes you happy, I'm happy for you. You know, if working at fucking Office Works makes you happy, I'm happy for you. If fucking directing movies makes you happy, I'm happy. If you want to draw pictures, I'm happy for you. That's what you want to do. And I always find it so hard, like getting into like retail jobs and stuff is like the default or whatever you want to call it. But it's like anything that's like a creative endeavor is like climbing fucking Mount Everest for some reason. And I don't believe it actually should be like climbing Mount Everest. I feel like it should be a lot easier, I guess. I wish it was easier. I know. It's like a super naive, like silly way to look at things.
But no, like that's the exact same approach that I have in my workplace because we work within those services. Like we meet kids and young adults that have incredible creative talents, like people that can draw just outstanding stuff, as an example, right? But then if you ask them the question, like, what do you want to do for a job? They're like, oh, retail or hospitality.
Why?
Like, well, why?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, but why not? Like, why not follow that? Like, that's so part of my job is to put things in place to line them up to go do creative shit to see that it is obtainable. Like, I got this job by being creative. Like, fuck, you can do it.
Yeah. Which is, I feel like our parents' generation, I guess, just like they got it drilled into them. It's like that's like the 1%ers, and everyone else should just accept. Like, don't even try. I feel like it was such an attitude of don't even try. You know,
risk
you
aversion.
get a job. You have your 2.5 kids in your station wagon. You picket fence and all that sort of crap. And
yeah, like if you was gonna make it as something other than general thing that everyone else is, you would magically make it when you was like 16 years old. You'd be a protege. Like, don't even bother. If you're 18 and you ain't got that shit worked out, yeah, have your 2 kids, buy a house, and sell down. Yeah. That's it. That's your life.
Yeah, work at the same place for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Even if it sucks.
But that's why, like, having that sort of mentality, like, around family members, be that my parents or my grandparents or whoever, bring it back to Kevin Smith. I was like, that's why it's always good to have, like, Kevin Smith, someone in your life, well, not directly in your life, but someone who will say things like, you know, follow your dreams, do your things. Because I guess for a lot of people, they don't have that. That's why I do believe that's why Kevin Smith is so gravitated towards by a lot of people, is because a lot of these people don't have anyone in their life who is willing to say, try, go for it, follow your dreams, have a go, just fucking do it. You know, a lot of people don't have anyone in their life they'll say any of that. So Kevin Smith is literally that person to them, and that's why I think Kevin Smith is so beloved. I don't actually think it's because of his movies, as much as that may be hard for, you know, like Kevin Smith's early movie career, sure. Kevin Smith is known today because of the person he is and not his movies, is what I think.
He's known for being Kevin Smith now, yeah.
Yeah. And that's not the shit on his movies, because I'm saying I really love a lot of these movies. I said Mallrats is in like my top 10 movies of all time. Sure. Kevin Smith, his movie career is completely separate to these days. It's like a completely separate entity.
He transcends them.
Yes, it absolutely transcends them. And he's one of very few filmmakers who actually do transcend their filmography, I think. Yeah. Any wrapping up thoughts before we end this episode then, I guess?
Do it!
No, I think I bared my soul pretty much enough, I think.
Yeah, good job. So that is it for this week's episode, and it'll be it for Radio Movies until we get our hands on Jay and the Silent Bob Reboot, of course. How long will that be is TBD. Stay tuned to all the Twitter accounts I'm about to throw out, though, to know when that's going to show up, or, you know, just keep the podcast subscribed, and when the episode shows up, it'll just download. Like, that's
there are a bunch of other movies that he's made that we may do a season 2 at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
if
like,
demand's there.
Yeah, if that's a thing that people want, or, you know, we'll just do it because we want it.
Well, yeah, because as give me an excuse to talk about Zack and Miri like all day. And Red State.
Yeah, I could talk about Red State. Yeah, well, We won't say when that's coming.
No,
because
we put
don't know when
you
Jay
put the vibes out into the ether and you see
Yeah.
what happens, and then
much like we don't know when Jay and Silent Bob Reboot's coming, you don't know when those episodes are coming. But it's sometime in the future. You can find Buddy Watson over at dashgamer.com on the Dash Culture podcast every fortnight talking pop culture, movies, and gaming. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at BuddyWatson12. You can find Ryan Betson over at youtube.com/thepopculturist talking all things PlayStation on 4 players and wrestling on the Young and the Wrestlers. Follow him on Twitter at HaggardMC. And you can find myself right here on ExplosionNetwork.com and one of our movies, games, or TV podcasts like Arcade Couch or What Do You Want to Watch? And you can follow me on Twitter at Vivaldil, VIVALADIL. Please be sure to review this podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever you're listening to. And for the last and final time, please tweet at Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes and tell them we need to get our hands on Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Thank you. We will see you, well, whenever, sometime in the future. Snoochie boochies.
thank you very much.
The Jedi mind trick. Holy shit, motherfucking Yoda and shit. It was between that and danger. My name is Anakin. My shitty acting is ruining Saga. But we go at it.
I think you went with the right one.